Shabbat Shalom,
Shabbat Shalom.
which is peace on Yahweh's holy Sabbath day. Welcome to another holy convocation that Yahweh has enjoined unto us here in Stone Mountain, Georgia. As we get closer and closer to the redemption of the children of Israel, we're finding more and more truth that Yahweh is allowing to be taught. But with that also comes the interference of the adversary. And the adversary wants to input confusion into that mix so that if people are bombarded with a lot of things, they will just eventually say, it's just too difficult. I won't try anything. And the adversary knows this, understanding that he knows the whole story from beginning to end, and he has made counterfeits all the way coming up. Understanding from the point in the garden that there was this sin done, there was this transgression. He understood what all would have to happen for man to be put in his right place. So before Yahweh could set up what needed to be set up, Lucifer set up counterfeits all along the way, and he's still doing the same thing. And when the counterfeit hits you first, you believe that the counterfeit is the authentic thing. When people buy a Louis Vuitton or a Gucci, they realize, hey, these things cost a whole lot of money. And part of the belief that is the authentic version is because of the price and the place where you purchased it at. But imagine if the first time you had ever seen a Louis Vuitton or a Gucci, it was at the flea market. That's real easy to get. And you feel a certain way. Then you walk up in Phipps Plaza and see a real Gucci. I said, man, that thing $400. I ain't getting that. See, now you got a problem against the real thing. Why? Because the counterfeit got to you first. The counterfeit was easier to get. It was cheaper, and everybody had it. So you are now poisoned against the authentic version, because the counterfeit reached you first. So the adversary is always in a race to be the first one to get to you, because he knows that we are creatures of habit. And once we get used to something, we will fight. Even if we don't understand what we're fighting for, we will fight to maintain the things that we have already gotten accustomed to. But before we get started, brother, would you read the oracles and entreat the angel that stands at the door to come in and sup with us and us with him, that we may make this a holy convocation by the angel's presence?
1 Peter chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. But the end of all things is at hand. Be you therefore sober and watch unto prayer. And above all things have fervent love among yourselves, for love shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man has received the gift, even so minister the same one to another as good stewards of the manifold grace of Elohim. If any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of Elohim. If any man minister, let him do it as of the ability which Elohim gives, that Elohim in all things may be glorified through Yahshua the Mashiach, to whom be praise and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 29 through chapter 5 and verse 4. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of Elohim, whereby we are sealed until the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be you kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as Elohim for Yahshua's sake has forgiven you. Be you therefore followers of Elohim, as their children, and walk in love, as the Mashiach also have loved us, and has given himself for us an offering and sacrifice to Elohim for a sweet-smelling savor. But fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as become saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather given of thanks. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Keep your foot when you go to the house of Elohim, and be more ready to hear, than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with your mouth, and let not your heart be hasty to utter anything before Elohim. For Elohim is in heaven, and you up on earth. Therefore let your words be few. Exodus chapter 23, verses 20 and 21. Behold, I send an angel before you, to keep you in the way, and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. Revelations chapter 3, verses 20 through 22. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come in to him, and will sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcomes will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I have also overcame, and am sat down with my Father in his throne. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches.
All right, we're going to begin today's sermon in Romans chapter 4. Romans chapter 4, and we're going to begin that at verse 1. And today's sermon is entitled, The Grace Deception. The Grace Deception. When we look out, one of the counterfeits that the adversary has placed out there is this false understanding of grace, believing that grace has allowed for us to be able to do whatever it is we want to do, and everything is covered by this grace, not understanding what this grace is really about. It is used to add a much easier path. The Messiah made it very clear that the path that leads to destruction is broad, and many there be which follow thereat. So there is this very easy way, that is this broad path that many people are going to follow. Then he says the path that leads to righteousness is narrow, and it's few that find that narrow path. But what we have a tendency to do is we like to justify things by the amount of people who are able to receive it. We'll go to a restaurant. If it ain't a whole bunch of people in that restaurant, we'll turn around. There ain't enough people eating in here. Food must be nasty. We're trying to use other people's verification, and it could be, hey, you the first one to figure this out. But we don't want to be nobody. That scares us, you know. We don't want to be the one. We want to be 101. We don't want to be one. See, it's too confusing to be the one. See, you might be that one to say, man, this is awesome. Then everybody else start coming because you went. But we don't want to do that. We want to follow everybody else. And everybody else has this wide path that says you can do whatever you want, but it's going to end up with a lot of disappointed people at the end. Romans chapter 4, and let's start that at verse 1.
What shall we say then? That Abraham our father, as pertaining to the flesh, has found. For if Abraham were justified by works, he has whereof to glory, but not before Elohim. For what says the scripture? Abraham believed Elohim, and it was counted on him for righteousness.
Now, what you have to understand, we are read, the adversary reads the same book and quotes the same things out of this same book. What he does is he quotes those things and uses them out of context. So when you deal with this, it says, for what says the scripture? Abraham believed Elohim, and it was accounted unto him for righteousness. So now people teach, all you have to do is believe, and everything is taken care of. But what they do not deal with is Abraham's belief was still marked by action. It was not with sacrifice, animal sacrifice, not even the sacrifice of his child, but it was still marked with action. What people are trying to tell you is if you're trying to do anything, you've already failed. They want you to not try. The one thing that all the slackers hate is an overachiever. That's one thing slackers hate, Jack. Because then now, they got to step up their game because you walked in the room. So slackers don't like you. I knew a guy that was did some construction work, and he came in and he did this work. They they pay him by how much they said this should take. So he's up on this, 20-story building. They said this thing should take 20 hours. He did it in 8. Them folks like, man, really good job. Then the boss and about 8 big burly dudes walked him over to the side of this building. Meanwhile, this building don't have no sides on it, so you can fall off all 20 stories. All right? So they walk him to the edge of it and said, don't ever do that again. So, oh man, you did that awesome. But next time it say it take 20 hours, you better make sure it take 20 hours. Because he was messing up all the rest of their money. So you done came in here with your little eagle beaver attitude. Ooh, I'm gonna work. Ooh, I'm gonna work. Hey, look here, you're gonna die up in here. That's what you're gonna do. You understand what I'm saying? Now, next time, because see, hey, they making $40 an hour, and you just made all them look bad by coming in here doing it at the right time. So they straightway threatened him. And that's what they did to the apostles. They threatened him. Don't teach in this name no more. Right. Go ahead.
Romans chapter 4 and verse 4. Now to him that works is the reward not reckoned of grace, but of debt. But to him that works not, but believes on him that justifieth the ungodly, his faith is counted for righteousness. Even as David also describes the blessedness of the man unto whom Elohim imputeth righteousness without works.
Right. Now, but we also know that Yaakov, James says, faith without works is dead. But what they're not understanding, they're dealing with not having to do this animal sacrifice. But what you find out is all law, especially as to what's taught on Sunday morning, is pushed into this one big bucket, even though there are different aspects of that law. Go ahead.
Saying, blessed are they whose iniquities are forgiven and whose sins are covered. Blessed is the man to whom the Adonai will not impute sin. Justification is part from ordinances. Cometh his blessedness then upon the circumcision only, or upon the uncircumcision also? For we say that faith was reckoned to Abraham for righteousness. How is it then reckoned? When he was in circumcision or in uncircumcision? Not in circumcision, but in uncircumcision.
So before he was even given the mandate of circumcision, there were certain things already accredited unto him. Go ahead.
And he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of the righteousness of the faith which he had yet being uncircumcised, that he might be the father of all them that believe, though they be not circumcised, that righteousness might be imputed unto them also.
Right. So most people undergo circumcision, but do not understand what circumcision means. Go ahead.
And the father of circumcision to them who are not of the circumcision only, but who also walk in the steps of that faith of our father Abraham, which he had, being yet uncircumcised. For the promise that he should be the heir of the world was not to Abraham or to his seed through the law, but through the righteousness of faith.
Right. So then Yahweh turns around and moves him to say, go and sacrifice the very heir, the very son. See, this is the part that people won't teach, that Abraham's faith was marked by action because he went and proved that he was going to follow Yahweh all the way down to the wire, all the way down to making the sacrifice. Then he said, stop. Don't put your hand on the boy. Now I know you will follow me. That's the part they don't want to deal with. They saying if you even trying to do it, you have already lost it. No, man. He led him all the way down to the wire to make sure that he would. Go ahead.
But even before getting to the wire, he had to take a journey. He had to gather sticks to do this sacrifice. So there was things done along the way leading up to the job he had to do.
Right. What they don't understand is even within that early part of the story, Abraham was justified without sacrifice. He didn't have to do it. But he proved that he would if he had to. Now, we didn't actually have to build the house to have this everlasting covenant with Yahweh. All he had to do was desire to build the house. Yahweh said, you gonna build me a house? Since you want to build me a house, I'm going to build you a house. He didn't actually have to do it. He just had the desire to do it. Go ahead.
Verse 14. For if they which are of the law be heirs, faith is made void, and the promise made of none effect. Because the law works wrath. For where no law is, there is no transgression.
If there is no law, there is no transgression. When we read, sin is the transgression of the law. So if there is still sin, there must still be law. Go ahead.
Therefore it is of faith, that it might be by grace, to the end the promise might be sure to all the seed. Not to that only which is of the law, but to that also which is of the faith of Abraham, who is the father of us all. As it is written, I have made you a father of many nations, before him whom he believed, even Elohim, who quickeneth the dead, and called those things which be not as though they were. Who against hope believed in hope, that he might become the father of many nations, according to that which was spoken, so shall your seed be.
Right. There's a natural part of this, and then there's a spiritual implication of this. Because Abraham, after the death of Sarah, ended up having multiple kids who ended up being the fathers of multiple nations. That was in the flesh. But spiritually, the father of many nations, being that other nations would be allowed to come into the family of Abraham when this word was then opened up to the Euro Gentiles. So whenever you're reading prophecy, there's always the double fold of it. There's the natural part that takes place, and then there's the spiritual part of that, which doesn't take place to sometime way down the line. It was the promise given to David that his son would build the house of Yahweh. Naturally, that was Solomon. But when you read the rest of the prophecy that was also given, he said, this son I will never cut off. Solomon got cut off. Solomon was only the natural answer to that statement. Yahshua, the Mashiach, was the spiritual answer to that. And think about how far apart those two events were. So the people who saw the physical one said, see, this prayer this prophecy has already been fulfilled. Then you got many generations later, then here comes Yahshua. Go ahead.
Romans chapter 4 and verse 19. And being not weak in faith, he considered not his own body now dead, when he was about 100 years old, neither yet the deadness of Sarah's womb. He staggered not at the promise of Elohim through unbelief, but was strong in faith, giving glory to Elohim, and being fully persuaded that what he had promised, he was able also to perform.
That's the faith. Believing that if you tell me that this boy is going to be this one to whom this promise is going to be made with, but then you tell me to sacrifice this boy, I believe you're going to bring him back. You told me you were going to make the promise with him. Then you tell me to do. See, this is where the question come in when we get conflicting things along the way. And along any path, there's going to be some conflicting things. In the beginning of a game, boy, you can swear one team going to win. That ain't how it turn out. Beginning of a fight, it looked like, boy, this cat finna get killed. That ain't how it turned out at the end of the fight. But if you just stop in the middle, you've already given up. Go ahead.
Verse 22. And therefore it was imputed to him for righteousness. Now it was not written for his sake only that it was imputed to him, but for us also, to whom it shall be imputed, if we believe on him that raised up Yahshua our Adonai from the dead, who was delivered for our offenses and was raised again for our justification.
All right, let's go to John chapter 1. There's certain things I need you to hear, because what ends up happening is these same things end up being said, and they're mentioned in a cliche aspect over and over. But without reading that full thought and other things along with it, it allows people to come across with a different understanding. when we're given this cherry picking of readings where an entire sermon is done on one verse, you can tell people that one verse mean anything. They spent 2 hours on that. If we just stop, if you read half of a thought, that can be made to believe that anything is going on there. John chapter 1, and let's read verses 11 through 17.
He came unto his own, and his own received him not. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of Elohim, even to them that believe on his name.
If you believe on his name, then there's certain things that you do. If you believe on his name, then you're baptized in his name. Not in the fake name that they gave us, but the real name. The first Bible printed in English had Jesus in it. We know that Zeus is the principal pagan god of the Euro-Gentiles. We read this book, and the Gentiles have constantly changed the major characters of this story names. They can't change all. It's thousands of names in this book. They don't change all of them. If you pay attention, they only change the major characters. They just need you to believe that the major characters were them. You can tell that something happened even if you look at the other people who move to this country and you see how the names of their children change so that they can assimilate into this culture. You go to a Chinese man's house and he'll tell you all his family. That's my father. That's Ming, Ding, Dong, Dang, Ching, and Johnny. What the hell just happened here? Wait a minute. Well, hold on. So I got Ming, Ding, Dang, Dong, and Johnny. What the hell just happened? Something happened right here. How I get Ming, Ding, Dang, Dong, and Johnny? That the Johnny don't fit in this equation. See? All you gotta do is follow it. Same thing happened in this book. How somebody named Methuselah have a son named Bob? Wait a minute. Something just happened here. Something just happened. Pay attention. Go ahead.
Verse 13. Which were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of Elohim. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. And we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Johannes bare witness of him, and cried, saying, This was he of whom I spake. He that comes after me is preferred before me, for he was before me. And of his fullness have all we received, and grace for grace. For the law was given by Moshe, but grace and truth came by Yahshua, the anointed one.
Now, the law was given by Moshe, but grace and truth came by Yahshua. Grace of what? That's what the question is. Just like they loop all law together, they also throw everything of grace together as well. Let's go to Genesis chapter 6. So it said grace came by Yahshua. And since they believe it's only one type of grace because they throw all law together, they're not able to have an accurate understanding of that. Genesis chapter 6, and we're going to read verses 5 through 8.
Verse 5. And Elohim saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented Yahweh that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And Yahweh said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repents me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of Yahweh.
Noah found grace in the eyes of Yahweh in Genesis chapter 6. So then, well, if he found grace in Genesis, why is it talking about Yahshua brought in grace? See, this is grace from animal sacrifice that Yahshua had. Noah found grace in Genesis chapter 6. So the Mashiach was not the maker of all grace. Let's go to Exodus chapter 33. Exodus chapter 33, and let's read verses 7 through 17.
Verse 7. And Moshe took the tabernacle and pitched it without the camp, afar off from the camp, and called it the tabernacle of the congregation. And it came to pass that everyone which sought Yahweh went out onto the tabernacle of the congregation, which was without the camp.
Right, because they was doing so much dirt. If Yahweh stayed among them, he would end up having to kill them. So he had to separate his spirit from the regular place of Israel. And people don't really understand that when they're doing things. You have to learn where even to do your little dirt at. They had an outhouse for a reason. Go over there and do that. Don't do that over here. Yahweh said, if these people stay among me, I'm going to have to kill them. Now these people, he said, I love these people. I call these people to be a representation of me here on the earth. But if I stay near them, I'm going to have to kill them. Because they're hard of hearing. Go ahead.
Verse 8. And it came to pass when Moshe went out onto the tabernacle that all the people rose up and stood every man at his tent door and looked after Moshe until he was gone into the tabernacle. And it came to pass, as Moshe entered into the tabernacle, the cloudy pillar descended and stood at the door of the tabernacle, and Yahweh talked with Moshe.
Mm-hmm.
And all the people saw the cloudy pillar stand at the tabernacle door, and all the people rose up and worshipped, every man in his tent door. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe face to face, as a man speaks unto his friend. And he turned again into the camp. But his servant Yahshua, the son of Nun, a young man, departed not out of the tabernacle.
So what people don't understand is Yahshua, the son of Nun, the young man, was learning what to do. Yahweh was already training the next leader. What Israel like to do, because we are such respecters of persons, we think that when one old man died, that we just go find the next old dude and put him in the chair. Like Yahweh only, he just need the oldest person, because Israel is real respect of persons, especially when it come down to age. But Yahweh is already training this next man. As everybody else, pay attention, everybody else standing at their tent door. The only one in there with Moshe, he's there as the Spirit is dealing with Moshe, is Joshua. He's there constantly. So he's already learning what to do, what not to do, getting accustomed to the Spirit being around and know how not to take the Spirit off. Go ahead.
Verse 12. And Moshe said unto Yahweh, See, you saith unto me, Bring up this people, and you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, I know you by name, and you have also found grace in my sight.
You have found grace in my sight. In Exodus, Noah has found grace. Go ahead.
Moshe.
I'm sorry, Moshe. That ain't the end of that, right?
No,
we gotta go. All right, go ahead.
I was just saying Moshe found grace. Now therefore, I pray you, if I have found grace in your sight, show me now your way, that I may know you, that I may find grace in your sight, and consider that this nation is your people. And he said, My presence shall go with you, and I will give you rest.
Mm-hmm.
And he said unto him, If your presence go not with me, carry us not up hence. For wherein shall it be known here that I and your people have found grace in your sight? Is it not in that you goeth with us? So shall we be separated, I and your people, from all the people that are upon the face of the earth.
Verse 16, For wherein shall it be known here that I and your people have found grace in your sight? So not only has Moshe found grace in Yahweh's sight, but so has the children of Israel. Yahshua ain't nowhere on the scene yet. Go ahead.
And Yahweh said unto Moshe, I will do this thing also that you have spoken, for you have found grace in my sight, and I know you by name.
So we find this going on several times before the Mashiach is on the scene. So then there's a different grace then that we have to then deal with, because it is clear here that he's saying over and over, you have found grace. So what was it talking about then, saying that grace came by Yahshua? We're going to find out. Let's go to Galatians chapter 5. But when you can tell people, just stay in this part of the book, then they're not going to figure out anything else. And when they hear people talking about it, they think something wrong with those people. Galatians chapter 5, and let's start with verses 1 through 4.
Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith the Mashiach has made us free, and be not entangled again with the yoke of bondage.
And they teach, if you deal with any of the culture, you dealing with that yoke of bondage. Oh, you trying to keep the Sabbath? Oh, you dealing with that yoke of bondage. That's what you dealing with. What they dealing with is animal sacrifice, and people are just lumping all of these things together. Go ahead.
Behold, I, Saul, say unto you, that if you be circumcised, the Mashiach shall profit you nothing.
If you are circumcised, Christ shall profit you nothing. Understand, the Euro Gentiles were called in uncircumcision. So for them to turn around and get circumcised like the children of Israel, which we shall read, makes you a debtor to do the law. Keep reading.
For I testify again to every man that is circumcised, that he is a debtor to do the whole law.
And this is the whole thing. The Sunday teachers go through all of these things, but they skip these certain parts. It says if you are circumcised, you are a debtor to do the whole law. And everybody in the room be circumcised, and all of them talking about the law was nailed to the cross. Yeah, but then you get circumcised. I guess you didn't understand what that meant then. Read.
The Mashiach is become of no effect unto you. Whosoever of you are justified by the law.
Justified by the law. If you are justified by the law, then you are made righteous by a certain part or deed of the law, which was animal sacrifice. The only thing that could make you right or justify you back in the right place with Yahweh your Elohim was the sacrifice of an animal. Blood must be shed to make an atonement for sin. So those who are doing that, they are now believing that their animal can override the righteous blood of the Mashiach. This is what it's talking about, but this is not how it's being taught. Go ahead.
You are fallen from grace. Verse 5. For we through the Spirit wait for the hope of righteousness by faith.
Jump to verse 16.
This I say then, walk in the Spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary the one to the other, so that you cannot do the things that you would.
Right. There is an automatic fight going on inside of all of us. There is the flesh that fights the Spirit. Go ahead.
But if you be led of the Spirit, you are not under the law. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness.
All these things we can find in the commandments. See? So what people think is this just some mystery list that he just grabbed out of nowhere. See, this is a mystery list of stuff right here. Go ahead.
Idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like. Of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of Elohim.
That they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of Elohim. Yet, I heard a prominent pastor say, you can sleep with everybody in the church. You still gonna go to heaven. See, that's how you get a sick $3 million plane right there. You tell them kind of lies right there. That's how you get a sick $3 million plane. That's how you do it right there. You tell the people, Y'all can have y'all a big old fornication party. God ain't mad with you. He ain't mad with you. He cool. That's that old mean God that they were talking about. No, you gonna do what you gotta do. See? Right. This book says, they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of Elohim. So somebody lying. Either the book lying or they lying. And I'm gonna have to believe what's written in this book. Go ahead, bro. Did you finish that?
Yep, that was it. Verse
All right.
21.
Where we going now? Let's go to back up to Galatians 3. Galatians 3, and let's read verses 19 through 25.
Verse 19. Wherefore then serves the law? It was added because of transgressions, till the seed should come to whom the promise was made, and it was ordained by angels in the hand of a mediator.
You have to listen very closely, because our law to so-called New Testament believers are lumped together. It is the belief that commandments and all of these things are lumped into this. It says, wherefore then serves the law? It was added because of transgression. Keep that in your mind. Go ahead and keep reading.
Now a mediator is not a mediator of one, but Elohim is one. Is the law then against the promises of Elohim? Elohim forbid. For if there had been a law given which could have given life, verily righteousness should have been by the law. But the scripture has concluded all under sin, that the promise by faith of Yahshua the Mashiach might be given to them that believe. But before faith came, we were kept under the law.
What part of the law? Before faith came, we were kept under the law. So there's a certain part of the law that held us until a certain event. Go ahead.
Shut up onto the faith which should afterwards be revealed. Wherefore the law was our schoolmaster to bring us on to the Mashiach, that we might be justified by faith.
So this law was our schoolmaster that brought us unto the Mashiach. So then the Mashiach had to do something then to fulfill this part of the law. He didn't commit adultery. He didn't commit fornication. What did he do? He was sacrificed. This is dealing with sacrificial law. Go ahead.
But after that faith has come, we're no longer under a schoolmaster.
So we no longer need sacrificial law. Let's go to Colossians chapter 2. Just a couple books to the back. A couple pages, really. Colossians chapter 2. And we're going to read verses 8 through 17. Because it's so many of these things taken out of context, we're going to have to read them. Because most people just regurgitate stuff that they heard before. So they'll be telling you something, and then all you got to do is keep talking and ask a few questions. They don't know where to go after that, because they just saying what they heard before. See, remember now, we're creatures of habit. We'll repeat stuff we heard on the news if we hear it several times. You have to ask yourself, with all the stuff that's going on in the world, how the news happen to report the same 3 or 4 events on every channel, and they all happen to leave out the same events, but they competitors. How that work? If y'all competing against one another, how is it that y'all all include the same things and y'all all leave out the same things too? Interesting. Mm-hmm. It's rather interesting. You have to think about how you got all these different insurance companies, but somehow they all got together to operate in the same way, to make all your rates go up at the same time. Because there was this one point that everybody's insurance went up, and every insurance company, although they are competitors, they all sat down and agreed. And, you know, you thought you was smart, man. These folk crazy. I'm going to call another insurance company. Hello? Oh, and 400 there too? Hello? 420? That might well stay where I'm at then. Right. Now, how they going against each other, but somehow they all made this agreement? Right. Go ahead.
Verse 8. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after the Mashiach. For in him dwelleth all the fullness of the God of the Elohim head, God bodily, and you are complete in him, which is the head of all principality and power, in whom also you are circumcised with the circumcision made without hands, in putting off the body of the sins of the flesh by the circumcision of the Mashiach, buried with him in baptism, wherein also you are risen with him through the faith of the operation of Elohim, who has raised him from the dead. And you, being dead in your sins and the uncircumcision of your flesh.
So then, we first of all, understanding that these things are written to the Euro-Gentiles who have been grafted into this faith. When you talk about all of these places, Colossians, that's Colossae, Philippians, Philippi. These are all places. Ephesians, Ephesus, okay? Galatians, Galatia. These are places among the Europeans. Corinthians is Corinth. These are all places in Europe. The Europeans were not given the same mandates as the children of Israel. So the same things that will allow them to get their salvation will get you killed. Go ahead.
Has he quickened together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses. Verse 14. Blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way, nailing it to his cross.
Now, what you have to first understand, blotting out, verse 14, blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us. When you have sacrificial law, there's a whole lot of ordinances that are contained within that sacrificial law. Here's the thing. For the sacrificial law, there's priests that have to do that. The Euro-Gentiles can't have no priest. So if they would have had all of this against them, they never would have been able to enter into the word. People ain't paying attention. This had to be lifted for them to even be able to come into the word. They don't have any priests. So who's going to do their sacrifices? Go ahead.
And having spoiled principalities and powers, he made a show of them openly, triumphing over them in it. Let no man therefore judge you in meat, or in drink, or in respect of a holy day, or of the new moon, or of the Sabbath days.
Right, and this is why I say when you read one verse, you can do anything with it. We heard Mr. Big Money read this right here, and he stopped right here at this verse and made them people believe. You see that? Let nobody judge you in respect of a new moon or a holy day or a Sabbath day. Now read the next line.
Which are a shadow of things to come.
You see that? You see that? But see, what you do is you read verse 16 and you go to hollering, and the people, they ain't looking at the book no more. See, that's what he do. And that's how they play the game. To make you think that Sabbath is all done away with. He says, which are a shadow of things to come. But you ain't looking at the book no more by then. Because right when he get to verse 16 and he said, let nobody judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of a holy day or the new moon or the Sabbath day. You ain't looking at your book. And he making sure, don't look at the book, look at me. Don't look at the book, look at me. Don't look at the book. Now the very next line explain the rest of that. And you will never see that next verse. And it went but one verse down. One verse down. But you watch them soothsayers do that to 10,000 people in the room and they love it. Go ahead, brother. Yeah, finish that up.
But the body is of the Mashiach.
All right. Let's go to Genesis chapter 3. Because, see, we're going to have to look at rules or commandments versus the law and animal sacrifice. Because what people take is this statement. They said law was added because of transgression. And then he's nailed all of these things to his cross. So they said, you ain't got to do that. Now, tithing was in the law too, but they said you need to do that. There's some funny business going on here. There's some real funny business going on. Genesis chapter 3, and let's read verses 6 through 11. So consider now, it says the law was added because of transgression. You have to understand what part of the law that it was talking about. Because remember now, commandment is also law. What they do is blend all that together. So they said this is why you don't have to keep the commandments. Because the law was added because of transgression, and he blotted those things out. Go ahead and read.
And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons.
Now, this is the transgression. Okay? Go ahead.
And they heard the voice of Yahweh El walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Yahweh Elohim amongst the trees of the garden. And Yahweh Elohim called unto Adam and said unto him, Where are you? And he said, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself. And he said, Who told you that you was naked? Have you eaten of the tree whereof I commanded you that you should not eat?
You understand what's going on? The commandment was already given. The commandment was there first. Without the commandment, there is no transgression. They want you to lump commandments and sacrificial law all together and throw it away. The commandment was not added because of transgression. The commandment was the first thing he said. Those are rules. They want you to believe that there are no rules in a righteous setup. See, that's the deception of grace. The grace deception is set up to make you believe that there are no rules to righteousness. The first thing he said was, don't eat from the tree. That's a commandment. Any commandment is law. He has commanded it. He didn't suggest it. He didn't make a suggestion saying you might not want to eat from this tree. No, don't eat from the tree. All right? That's a commandment. So, the commandment was there first. Then they broke the commandment. Then you find, as you keep reading, the fig leaves was not an adequate covering. He covered them with skins. You don't even understand it right away. But then you understand as you read later, that was an animal that was sacrificed for them because blood must be shed to make an atonement for sin. So, the commandments were not added because of transgression. The commandments were there to set order in his house. So when these people teach against the commandments, they want to throw that in the pot and say all this law was nailed to his cross because it was only added because of transgression. That's not true. The commandment was there before the transgression. See, you got to, they want to make this stuff seem like it's really difficult. It's really not. Just start breaking. Sometimes you have a problem that's this long. And instead of dealing with the problem that big, deal with this part of the problem. Then deal with that part of the problem. Then deal with that part of the problem. Now you have dealt with this part of the problem. But if you look at that whole thing together, you may say, you get overwhelmed. Ain't no way I'm going to be able to figure this out. Chop the problem up. Let's go to our 1 John chapter 2. First John chapter 2, and let's read verses 1 through 6.
My little children, these things write I unto you, that you sin not. And if any man sin, we have an advocate with the Father, Yahshua the Mashiach, the righteous.
Right. So you don't need to do an animal sacrifice, because of the sacrifice of the Mashiach, you have an advocate with the Father. But obviously, if there is still sin, there must be law. For sin is the transgression of the law. Go ahead.
And he is the propitiation for our sins.
Propitiation is atonement, blood. He is the atonement sacrifice for our sins. So we don't need an animal. See, this is what it's talking about, nailing those ordinances to his cross. You don't need an animal to put you in the right spot with Yahweh your Elohim. That was an ordinance of sacrificial law. Go ahead.
And not for ours only, but also for the sins of the whole world. And hereby we know that we know him, if we keep his commandments.
So now, if you keep his commandments, you know him. They want to throw commandments in the same boat with sacrificial law and tell you you don't have to do it. He says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Well, you ain't got to do that. So he nailed that to his cross. But you need to do tithing, or else we're going to line you up and we're going to shoot every last one of y'all. What? This on video. Y'all can watch this big rich preacher telling them you don't have to do the law, but if you don't give your 10%, you should be lined up in front of a firing squad and shot with a Uzi. You just go on the internet and search it. But that's how you get a $63 million plane. Go ahead.
He that says, I know him, and keeps not his commandments, is a liar, and the truth is not in him.
Right. So they talking about how much they love the Mashiach. He says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. They say you ain't got to do none of that. And we talking about all the power is in them to do it. So now when you go by some of these organizations, they have an optional Saturday service. You're starting to see more of those pop up among these organizations. You find, so you used to see two services. They got that, the 8 o'clock service, and then they got the 11 o'clock Sunday morning. Then you find a Saturday afternoon service. Wait, where'd that come from? Right. That came from people who keep teaching out of this book, and they keep posting that stuff on internet, and they keep posting that stuff on Facebook, and then people going back to their pastors and they asking them some questions. So now them suggestion things are starting to pop up. So, because they're still not commanded to show up on the Sabbath day. It's still a suggestion. Go ahead.
But whoso keeps his word, in him verily is the love of Elohim perfected. Hereby know we that we are in him. He that says he abides in him ought himself also to walk, even as he walked.
So if we claim to love the Mashiach, then we should do the things that the Mashiach did. The Mashiach kept Passover. Go and ask all the people who claim how much they love the Messiah. Ask them how many Passovers they have attended. You're going to get a big goose head. They ain't been to damn Passover. Wait a minute. We supposed to do what he did. He kept his father's law. He kept the Sabbath. He kept all the holy days. There's a problem here. Let's go to Matthew chapter 5. See, when in doubt, you need to go to the source, and let's see what the source has to say. Matthew chapter 5, and let's start this at verse 17.
Think not that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I'm not come to destroy, but to fulfill.
Now see, we got a problem almost immediately. This is red writing. This is Messiah talking. Think not that I'm come to destroy the law. They said, but in the New Testament, it says he took the law away and he nailed it to his cross. It said he took the ordinances away and nailed them to his cross. If you don't understand the difference between the ordinance, if you don't understand the difference between the three parts of the law, you got sacrificial law, you have dietary law, and you have moral law. Sacrificial law, it says, I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. He couldn't fulfill dietary law. He didn't eat anything unclean. He couldn't fulfill moral law. He didn't do things against the moral code. He fulfilled sacrificial law because he was sacrificed. So when you talk about I am not come to destroy but to fulfill, the only thing he could have fulfilled was a sacrificial law. Because that's the only one of the laws that he had something to do with. Go ahead.
For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled.
See, now we got a problem. Now, we got the Messiah himself saying, ain't none of this law going away until all be fulfilled. But see, the grace deception has made you believe that you can do whatever you want to do. And grace somehow covers all your sins, past, present, and future, which is one of the biggest lies ever. The grace of the Mashiach covers your past sins. Them present and future ones, you're going to answer for yourself. Go ahead.
Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments.
Break one of these least commandments. Now understand, we were taught to gather on Sunday. The commandment says remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Go ahead.
And shall teach men so.
Where did we learn how to break these commandments? Wasn't no thug in the hood told us how to break these commandments. We didn't meet no evil people along the way who taught us how to do these things. No. We learned this stuff at church. This is where we learn to break these commandments. Go ahead.
He shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven.
Right. But people can't worry about being great in the kingdom of heaven because we're still trying to be great in the kingdom of men. So we're trying to have all of this money, and the more that you teach of this stuff, the less you're going to be called great among the kingdom of men. The kingdom of men not going to like you much if you keep talking about these commandments. Go ahead.
You know, even in this, you got a lot of people who are worried about, well, they doing this, or she did this, or he do that. You see what he said first? Who shall do them first, and then you teach them. So don't be a hypocrite and teach them and you ain't doing it.
You know, the whole part about teaching and doing is you end up learning more as you start doing. It helps your teaching go up on another level, and vice versa. So it kind of goes hand in hand. That's how you end up being able to keep growing in it. Go ahead.
Verse 20. For I say unto you, that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven.
Right. And you have to understand what the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees were, which we'll get into a little bit later. Go ahead.
You have heard that it was said by them of old time, you shall not kill.
Where you heard that at? Where you heard that? With them said it? Who are them? Keith and them? Man and them? Who said it? The commandment said it. Moshe said it. Go ahead.
And whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment.
Now, they claim that the law was nailed to the cross and that this whole big grace deception is you don't have to worry about any of this stuff. Now, instead of doing away with the law, Yahshua has made the law even more difficult. Go ahead.
But I say unto you, that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment.
Now, before it said, you shall not kill. Whoever shall kill will be in the danger of judgment. But I say, whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. That's much more difficult. See? So where they're telling you, you got this free pass, according to this red writing in this book, which is the Messiah talking, he says it has gotten more difficult. Because how many times you walk around and see folk and they angry with somebody and can't even tell you why? I just don't like that knuckle. Why you don't like him? I don't know. So he didn't into you? No. Well, what you angry with him for? I'm saying women be upset with another woman just because she got on the same dress. I know that heifer didn't. No, that heifer didn't. You know, they sold more than one of them dresses. You know that, right? You know, it was like a whole rack of those. They didn't sell just one to you, and that's it. She got the first. I'm sorry, y'all, that's it. We ain't going to sell but one. And they really believe that they have a reason to be angry. It never does occur to them that they are in danger of judgment. Why? Because the grace deception say you can do that. Go ahead.
And whosoever shall say to his brother, Reka, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, you fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar, and there remember that your brother has aught against you, leave there your gift before the altar, and go your way. First be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift.
So don't offer your gift if you know that your brother has a problem with you. Try that on Sunday morning and see what happens to you. You know what no, hold on. Boy, stop. They're going to have some serious problem with you. I can't give you this yet. I need to go fix this problem. No, put the money in the basket, brother. Put the money in the basket. Right. Go ahead.
Agree with your adversary quickly, while you are in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver you to the judge, and the judge deliver you to the officer, and you be cast into prison. Verily I say unto you, you shall by no means come out thence, till you have paid the uttermost farthing. You have heard that it was said by them of old time, you shall not commit adultery.
You shall not commit adultery. This is what they said. We know all this stuff is coming from the law. All of this is coming from the commandments that were given unto Israel. Go ahead.
But I say unto you, that whosoever looks on a woman to lust after her has committed adultery with her already in his heart.
This is why women are supposed to dress a certain way. Now, if you go out in some see-through clothing and brother over here done lost his mind, you done caused this brother to commit adultery in his heart. And if you married and you let your wife walk out with some clear clothing on, or walking around and her giblets running all across the place, you can't tell, hey, back these giblets up, they all over the place. And then brother lose his mind, you part of that. Why you let her at the house with her giblets taken off and you can't even catch the giblets, they all over the place. Right. Whosoever looketh on this woman to commit this with her, he has committed this act already in his heart. So how have you magnified this situation? And people not thinking about that when they get dressed. Because we know women love attention. And they know if I let these giblets run across, I'm going to get me some attention. They know that. They know that right off. And that's part of our fault. That's not all their fault. We have to respond to more than giblets. But giblets get your attention. But we got to be better than that. If we want them to be better than that, we got to be better than that. You can't tell them to do something that you ain't willing to do yourself. Go ahead.
Matthew chapter 5 and verse 29. And if your right eye offend you, pluck it out and cast it from you. For it is profitable for you that one of your members should perish, and not that your whole body should be cast into hell. And if your right hand offend you, cut it off and cast it from you. For it is profitable for you that one of your members should perish, and not that your whole body shall be cast into hell. It has been said, whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. But I say unto you, that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, cause her to commit adultery. And whosoever shall marry her that is divorced, commits adultery.
Now, the grace deception has told the people that they don't have to be bothered with this, because the grace deception said you can get married and divorced as many times as you want. It don't work out, just get divorced and get remarried again. See, they had that church count where they get married, then divorced, then married, and then divorced, and then married, and again. And they said, I ain't got but one husband, one wife. But Yahshua said, yeah, but you've been married 3 times. I count 3. No, I'm just counting the one dude that's standing here. No, I'm counting all of them. See, Yahshua don't count like we count. See? That's that whole thing with the woman at the well. She said, I want to drink this water. He said, go call your husband. She said, I don't have a husband. He said, you rightly said that, what you have said, for you've had 5 husbands, and the one you have now is not yours. So he counting all them men she done been with. See, people don't understand how important the baptism is in the correct name. Otherwise, you carrying a bunch of dead bodies behind you. Hey, you want to know who them zombies is behind you? That's all them people that you done had that unholy matrimony with. You keep looking back, who these zombies? Oh, look at that. I see Ralph and Keith and Man. Right. Who all them zombies is? Them your zombies. You better get rid of them zombies. Right. See? But see, the grace deception say, as long as you just get divorced and remarried again, it's okay. But Yahshua didn't say that. He said not only that, if you divorce a woman, you have now caused her to commit adultery, and then anybody else who married her is committing adultery if that divorce wasn't because of fornication. Here, they give you a divorce just because y'all couldn't get along about some biscuits. Y'all, that's irreconcilable. Y'all cannot decide on whether or not these biscuits should have butter or not. Y'all can get a divorce. And the court granted. Divorce granted. Here goes a butter biscuit. There you go. Now it's a long line of fornicators that's finna start dealing with them people and feel like they justified. Even got a nice little certificate on the wall that says marriage certificate. Right, bunch of married whoremongers. Because they're going in and out. That serial monogamy. Just got one at a time. One, and still say at the end, I got one. I got like 8, sweetie. I got like 8. That's 1 plus 1, plus 1, plus 1, plus 1. See? It's going to be a lot of people with their feelings hurt dealing with this grace deception. Because they believe one thing, and Yahshua has put how he going to deal with this. It's already there. So when you show up and you talking about, well, I ain't know. Who thought that is you didn't know? I put it in the book. I put it on the internet every week. How you didn't know? Go ahead, bro.
That was it, verse 32.
All right. Let's go to Revelation. No. Let's go to Matthew 12. Matthew chapter 12. And let's read verses 35 through 37. See, one of these things as well with this grace deception, like I said, you got bishops, so-called, over several churches who's saying that you can do whatever it is you want to do, and God's not angry with you. So the whole thing of judgment is not spoken of. And they say anybody that's talking to you about that stuff, you don't need to go to a church and be condemned. You don't need to go to church and have somebody tell you what you're doing wrong. That's a lie, and the truth ain't in it. Because if you sit there and justify people wrongs and tell them that it's okay, let me tell you something about people. You turn around and tell them that one thing is okay, next week, they got 2 of them problems. 2 more weeks after that, they got 4 of them problems. You are only as righteous as the wickedness that you justify. So if you turn around and justify those things, telling people because they giving tithing that they can just sleep around and they can do all of these things, that person that taught you that is in judgment, and you gonna go into judgment for listening to him. When the deception happened in the garden, he came and got everybody involved. And everybody had an excuse. The serpent tricked me. Come here, serpent. Let me get your little slithery self. Come here. The woman. The woman you gave me. Come here, woman. Let me get you. All right. Now what you do? Yeah. Come on. I'm getting you too. He got everybody involved. So if you gonna listen to these slick snake charmers, don't think that makes you without fault. No, he coming for you too. Because you let that serpent beguile you. Go ahead.
Verse 35. A good man out of the good treasure of the heart brings forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasure brings forth evil things. But I say unto you, that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give an account thereof in the day of judgment.
Right, but they want to tell you ain't going to be no day of judgment. You got to understand what the false belief of you die and zip tang you go to heaven, what it means. They tell you even at the funeral, he's looking down on us. No, I see him right there. He in that box. He actually looking up. He not looking down, Pastor. I'm telling you, I'm seeing him right there. But what does that do? The belief that if you die and boom, you already in heaven, there was no time for judgment. Everybody trying to escape judgment by pretending it doesn't exist. It says man's going to give an account for every idle word that proceeds out of his mouth. You know how much stuff we say? Go ahead.
For by your words you shall be justified, and by your words you shall be condemned.
Now we're reading that. We got to go to something else. Let's go to Revelation chapter 21. Revelation chapter 21. And let's read verses 5 through 8. We're just going to read a little bit so that you understand that this judgment is always a part of the story. Remember, there was rules in the beginning. Don't eat from the tree. That was a commandment. Right off the rip. So the belief that there is some setup, a kingdom setup without rules is the craziest thought ever. There are rules in everything you do. You got a job, they got rules in there. You realize if you go to a club, they got rules in there. Now it's a den of iniquity. But they got rules in the den of iniquity. Now, if the devil got clubs that's got rules, what makes you think the Most High doesn't have any kind of governmental system to guide how your conduct is supposed to be? But the club got rules. Gangs got rules. Go ahead.
Verse 5. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. And he said unto me, It is done. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. He that overcomes shall inherit all things, and I'll be his Elohim, and he shall be my son.
All right, but listen, go ahead.
But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers.
Right, even the married whoremongers. Because you got the married whoremongers. They said, look, I got a marriage certificate. Right. Matter of fact, you got 4 of them if you find the other 3 you had before. Go ahead.
And sorcerers and idolaters and all liars.
All liars. We done broke lies down. That's amazing how they dump all law together. But then separated lies, because see, you got them little white lies. They supposed to be not bad. I guess the bad ones are black lies. See, so you got little white lies. You can tell those. He said all liars. Now, why did he go to the step of saying all liars? Right. Go ahead.
Shall have their part in the lake which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death.
Right. And because this grace deception teaches that there's death and an automatic going to heaven, you don't even understand the second death. You don't even understand that there are 2 resurrections, and that the resurrection that you want to be a part of is the first resurrection, where the Messiah then is on the earth for 1,000 years. But then you got people who say they going to heaven, and then the Messiah coming out of heaven to come and live here. But see, that's what this whole deception of the way that grace is mistaught, that's what it's doing unto our people. Let's go back to Matthew chapter 23. See, the people who think they're going to heaven zip tang, you start reading and talking about 2 resurrections, and they start looking at you like you have lost your mind. What are you talking about 2 resurrections? What are you talking about, the second death? They think something wrong with you. Matthew chapter 23, and let's start that at verse 23.
Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you pay tithe of mint and anise and cumming, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law.
Wait a minute. So that means there's weightier matters of the law than tithing? Some people, the only law they've ever heard of is the law of tithing. Because that's the only one that's taught. Matter of fact, it's taught every third Sunday. Let 2 weeks pass, teach on tithing. Let another 2 weeks pass, teach on tithing. So the one that they push, the one that they've heard of constantly is tithing. But yet, this is the Mashiach talking. This is in red. He says the weightier matters of the law. Go ahead.
Judgment, mercy, and faith. These ought you to have done, and not to leave the other undone.
Right. Go ahead.
You blind guides, which strain at a gnat and swallow a camel. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you may clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess.
Listen to what he says. They are full of extortion. Extortion. They got 5, 6, 7 different offerings. Extortion. That plate keep going around. And folks feel like they're getting robbed. They got a 30-year building fund. Ain't built not one building. Extortion. And full of excess. And we like to have it so. We believe that the leaders should have, $5 and $10 million houses. They should have all of these things. Extortion and excess. Go ahead.
You blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, that the outside of them may be clean also.
Right. And you have to ask yourself, these scribes and Pharisees and Sadducees, these are people who are so-called in the priesthood, in the temple. Yet Yeshua came and didn't pick not one of those people. You have to ask yourself, Yeshua came and picked regular people. He came and got fishermen, regular dudes. Why you think you here? He bypassed all the preachers and politicians and called you. Go ahead.
Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like unto whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones, and of all uncleanness. Even so you also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! Because you build the tombs of the prophets, and garnish the sepulchres of the righteous, and say, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets.
Right. Many people will tell you if Christ was around, they would follow the Mashiach, and the Mashiach was a preacher without a church. He was traveling from place to place. Half of the people who claim how much they love him, they wouldn't have nothing to do with him. Go ahead.
Wherefore you be witnesses unto yourselves, that you are the children of them which killed the prophets.
All right, let's go to Romans chapter 2. Romans chapter 2, and we're going to read verses 11 through 27. Romans chapter 2, and verses 11 through 27.
Verse 11. For there is no respect of persons with Elohim. For as many as have sinned without law shall also perish without law.
As many as have sinned without law, they shall die without law. Go ahead.
And as many as have sinned in the law shall be judged by the law.
Right. But The grace deception teaches that you're going to die and go right to heaven. So the grace deception is trying to completely erase the whole system of judgment. Go ahead.
For not the hearers of the law are justified before Elohim, but the doers of the law shall be justified.
Right. Now, before it was saying stuff like if you are justified by the law, then you are in error. Justified by sacrificial law. Remember, there's still two other whole forms of law. Dietary law and moral law. If you look at the way this government is set up, they got three areas of their law. Legislative, judicial, and something else. Exactly. There you go. Yeah, that one. Go ahead.
Verse 14. For when the Gentiles which have not the law,
the Gentiles were not given the law. What the people try to tell you is that you Gentiles. When you read this book and it says Saul was sent to the Gentiles, you find out where he went, to Europe and Asia. If you a Gentile, why ain't go to none of them black people? He was the apostle of the Gentiles. When you read all of these places, Rome, Colossae, he went to Greece, all of these, you can look at an old map and find all these names and find out that he went all amongst Europe and Asia Minor. All among these places. This is who he was sent to, the Gentiles. You have let people tell you that you a Gentile. Go ahead.
For when the Gentiles which have not the law do by nature the things contained in the law, these, having not the law, are a law unto themselves.
Right. So why would he even deal with this if there's no law that you have to deal with at all? Go ahead.
Which show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and their thoughts the meanwhile accusing or else excusing one another. In the day when Elohim shall judge the secrets of man by Yahshua the Mashiach, according to my gospel.
Hold on. In the day when Elohim shall judge the secrets of men. If the grace deception tell you already in heaven, you ain't got to deal with that. See? Everybody that smile at you is not your friend. They tell you these lies with a big smile. And they got a nice song and dance and a pretty building to go along with all those lies. But it says that the secrets of men is going to be judged. But imagine all the stuff you feel like you okay doing when you don't think you ever going to have to answer for it. People who don't understand credit, get that charge card and go to work. He was like, you mean I ain't got to pay you nothing? No, just swipe that card. Give me 12 of them. They going to work, boy. Swipe it. And then at the end of the month, where's all this stuff? That's all the stuff you swipe. I got to pay for that? Yeah, you got to pay for that. Matter of fact, you got to pay for that stuff with interest now. Oh, it costs more if you pay later. You might want to pay now. Go ahead.
Verse 17. Behold, you are called a Yehudi, and resteth in the law, and make your boasts of Elohim, and knoweth his will, and approve the things that are more excellent, being instructed out of the law.
Now you see the difference. The children of Israel are instructed out of the law. The Gentiles are not given the law. If you don't understand who you are as a people, you have learned the word the incorrect way. So here it is, thinking you a Gentile, you learning the word a completely incorrect way. Now this is where it really gets twisted. You think you a Gentile, yet you go out and get circumcised, which we just read makes you a debtor to do the whole law. You about as backwards as two left shoes. Go ahead.
And are confident that you yourself are a guide of the blind, a light of them which are in darkness, an instructor of the foolish, a teacher of babes, which has the form of knowledge and of the truth in the law. You therefore which teacheth another, teacheth you not yourself? You that preacheth a man should not steal, does you steal?
Wait a minute, where you getting this stuff from? Why would you teach that a man should not steal if the law is nailed to the cross? Go ahead.
You that says a man should not commit adultery, does you commit adultery? You that abhorreth idols, does you commit sacrilege?
Now understand now. Verse 22 is a little bit confusing now. You that say that a man should not commit adultery, do you commit adultery? Which then means, hey, did you marry some woman that was already divorced? You, my friend, have committed adultery. Why? Because she's still married to that dude. Yeah, but she said they ain't together no more. Is he living? Is he still breathing? Well, then she's still married to him. Go ahead, man.
You that maketh your boast of the law, through breaking the law dishonoreth you Elohim? For the name of Elohim is blasphemed among the Gentiles, through you, as it is written. For circumcision verily profits, if you keep the law.
Circumcision profits if you keep the law. I tell you, people don't understand what circumcision is. Go ahead.
But if you be a breaker of the law, your circumcision is made uncircumcision. Therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? And shall not uncircumcision, which is by nature, if it fulfill the law, judge you, who by the letter and circumcision does transgress the law?
Right. So, this whole thing about keeping the righteousness, jump to verse 29.
But he is a Yehudi, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart.
If you have a circumcised heart, then you want to follow the righteousness of the law. Go ahead.
In the spirit.
In the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law. Go ahead.
Whose praise is not of men, but of Elohim.
Right. Let's go to Romans chapter 5. And let's start that at verse 12. See, grace sounds like a really nice thing when you can just use it for everything. Grace has allowed you to do this. Grace has allowed you to do this. A lot of lies have been told on grace. Grace somewhere pissed off. I ain't say all that stuff. They lying on me. Right. Romans 5, and let's start that at verse 12.
Wherefore, as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. For until the law sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed when there is no law. Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam to Moshe, even over them that had not sinned after the similitude of Adam's transgression, who is the figure of him that was to come. But not as the offense, so also is the free gift. For if through the offense of one many be dead, much more the grace of Elohim, and the gift by grace, which is by one man, Yahshua the Mashiach, hath abounded unto many.
So now you have the grace of Yahshua, which has taken away the law of sacrifice. Dietary moral law is still in effect. Go ahead.
And not as it was by one that sinned, so is the gift. For the judgment was by one to condemnation. But the free gift is of many offenses unto justification. For if by one man's offense death reigned by one, much more they which receive abundance of grace and of the gift of righteousness shall reign in life by one, Yahshua the Mashiach. Therefore, as by the offense of one judgment came upon all men to condemnation, even so by the righteousness of one the free gift came upon all men unto justification of life.
Right. See, one of the deceptions that is taught by grace is that everyone automatically has righteousness. You are automatically righteous no matter what you do. Go ahead.
For as by one man's disobedience many were made sinners, so by the obedience of one shall many be made righteous. Moreover, the law entered, that the offense might abound. But where sin abounded, grace did much more abound. That is, sin has reigned unto death, even so might grace reign through righteousness unto eternal life by Yahshua the Mashiach, our Adonai. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin, that grace may abound? Elohim forbid.
Right, but yet people have said you can do whatever you want. Wait a minute now, that match what's written in here. Go ahead.
And that's basically what we're being told. Since grace is here, you can just keep sinning.
Exactly. See, that's the lie that's told on grace. I tell you, boy, when we meet Grace, she gonna be ready to fight. She was like, hey, there's a whole bunch of lies that been told on me. Go ahead.
Elohim forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? Know you not that so many of us as were baptized into Yahshua the Mashiach were baptized into his death? Therefore we are buried with him by baptism into death, that like as the Mashiach was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in newness of life.
Right. Jump to verse 12.
Let not sin therefore reign in your mortal body, that you should obey it in the lust thereof.
This goes completely opposite of what the teachings of grace say. Go ahead.
Neither yield you your members as instruments of unrighteousness unto sin, but yield yourselves unto Elohim as those that are alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness unto Elohim.
All are going to sin. It is not this thing where you enter into the word and then everything you do is going to be without fault. But if you make believe that you didn't do a fault, you have absolutely no place of repentance. For the whole thing of repentance is admitting that you have done something wrong and try to make an attempt not to commit it again. How can you do that if you don't believe you've done anything wrong? There's no forgiveness without repentance. And you can't repent from something that you don't see the error in. Go ahead.
For sin shall not have dominion over you, for you are not under the law, but under grace. What then? Shall we sin because we are not under the law, but under grace? Elohim forbid.
Consider, if you got a whole bunch of people, this is how the wealthy was always able to do more and still felt justified. They got 10 goats over here. They do something wrong, sacrifice the goat. They still say, now the rich man saying, look at me, I got 9 more sins I can do this month. What's that? I got 9 more goats, Jack. Now, here it is, you got a poor man over here. He ain't got but 1 goat. So he's sitting there, hoping he don't do nothing wrong. He ain't got but 1 goat, Jack. I ain't got but 1 goat. I do one thing, I'm bankrupt. He did 1 little sin, and his heart done tore him up. Captain Finance over here sinning all day long. But because he got goats and all kind of stuff, he still walking around, boy, I'm straight. Because every last one of my sins I got offering for, I'm straight. So ain't nothing happened in his heart because he got money. See, that's what that whole thing in Catholicism is about, paying off your sins. See? Forgive me, Father, for I've sinned. I've killed 10 people and taken all their substance. That's okay, my son. Pay that money. You are made righteous again. Wow.